Morning, welcome to this session. They do say that people are your greatest asset. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but I'm a great believer that people are your greatest asset, but only if they are engaged, motivated, positive, but most of all, they are performing within your organisations. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is how do you look at this whole subject and create this culture where people can maximise and be performing and be positive and be motivated. Okay? Now before you think, this is the soft, fluffy, how many people from HR here? So I just know, Guy, you'll love this. Oh, you're not quite sure? Do I want to be? I'll declare my colours now. I've worked in HR for 25 years. And before you think, this is the soft and fluffy tree-hugging session, I have big news for you, because there is an incredible amount of evidence now that suggests that if you invest in this area, if you focus on it, it will have a big return for you, a big impact on your organisation, and in particular on your bottom line. And these are just some figures that prove, if you just Google the return on investment in employee engagement, you'll see this in spades now. And the government have just produced a white paper called Nailing the Evidence, which does actually say, guys, there is a clear business case for investing in this. You need to do this. This has a big impact on your bottom line. Any finance people here? Happy now? Okay, so employee engagement. I have spent my career, I've travelled the world looking for the magic formula, for the holy grail. What is it that you need within an organisation that will lead you to this place where everybody's engaged and motivated? And I've been into many organisations and I've seen lots of different ways of tackling this. I've seen this. Big impact when employees are disengaged. And here's a great example. And I'm sure when you look at your organisations and you see the impact that it has if people are not motivated, they're not engaged in what they do, and how much time and effort that takes to solving that and sorting out the problems. So that is a big, big influencer as well. But of course, I've also seen where it works really well. And does anybody know these guys? Again, anybody here a games maker during the Olympics? I had two in my last presentation, which was really interesting. Now I went to the Olympics. I didn't do very well. I came last in my event. But I met the games makers, and these for me were the most motivated, engaged people that I think I've come across in my entire career. And I went to the tennis, which was at Wimbledon, and there was a big long queue to get in. It was about 8 o'clock in the morning. And I met one of these games makers, and they were just brilliant, fantastic. I thought, oh, here's my opportunity. I need to understand what's going on here. What is the secret? What's the magic? What's the secret ingredient? Why are these people so motivated and so engaged? So I got chatting to the lady on the security queue, and she told me that she started at work at 6 o'clock doing what she was doing, and she was going to finish at 7 o'clock at night. She'd taken 2 weeks off her normal job, her annual holiday, to come and do this. Then I asked her, how many of these sports are you going to see? Are you going to go and see the tennis later? No, we don't get to see any of the sports. I just stand at the front of the queue and I just welcome people in. And I said to her, why? Why are you doing this? What makes you so motivated and engaged? What is it? I need to know. And I got my notepad out, ready for the answer. And do you know what she said to me? What do you think she said to me? This is the audience participation bit, in case you're wondering. Absolutely, to be a part of something, to belong to something bigger. And for me, this is what employee engagement is all about. It's being part of something, belonging to something, and I call it the insider feeling. It's a very emotional thing. What makes you think, I want to be a part of something? Let me just show you something. Does anybody know what this is? Anybody here a BMX biker? You surprise me? If you are a BMX biker, this is your logo. Now, I've done some work for a company up in London. I was there yesterday, actually, called Factory Media. Lovely company. And they basically produce action sports magazines and websites. So if you're a BMX biker, you buy or subscribe to the Dig magazine. This is the Dig logo. And you go onto the Dig website. And there are 10 people who work on the Dig magazine and website at Factory Media. And this is their logo. This is Paul. He is the editor of Dig, and I was chatting to him yesterday. He has a tattoo of the Dig logo on his arm. This is the company logo on his arm. He has a tattoo. It's not a false tattoo, it's a real tattoo. The other 9 members of staff of the team, they also have a Dig tattoo on their arm. And for me, again, this is what it's all about. It's belonging to something. It's in the club. We are the Dig team. So what I'd like you to do now is, this is the tattoo bit. This is the show and tell section. We'll turn the videos off. Is that all right, Gav? We did plan this beforehand. So if you'd like to show your tattoos for your company. I know there's 2 people from Honda here. Where are the Honda people? Are they here? Okay, you'll like this bit. So, this was on the BBC website in November. This lady works for Volkswagen. She's in the marketing department. Now, call me old-fashioned, that is not a small tattoo. She did get headhunted by Mercedes, but unfortunately she couldn't go. And for me, again, it's that insider feeling around feeling that you belong to something. Now, I worked for Virgin for 10 years, and it was the best job I ever had. Loved it to death. And in the end, I worked down in Trowbridge. Anybody from Trowbridge? Yay, we love Trowbridge. I spent 10 years working for Virgin Mobile down in Trowbridge. I loved every second of it. It was just, I just cannot tell you how much it really meant to me. Virgin Media then came along, which I'm sure you're aware, and sadly I was made redundant. Anybody here been made redundant from organisations? Now, that was a very bitter and twisted experience, and I should now be feeling really, they made me redundant, that was my perfect job. But if Virgin offered me a job tomorrow, I'd go. I don't care where it is in the world, I would just go. And I cannot explain why that is, because it's a real in here. It's my tattoo, if you like. It's the most thing. And that's the thing around this whole area. People think that employee engagement is a program, is an initiative. Let's do a survey, let's tick the boxes. That's fine, but you've got to really think about the emotional side of it. How do people feel about working for your organisation? What makes them feeling that they belong, that they want to go the extra mile, that they're positive? And this is a key thing, and it's the holy grail, and it's all about that magic formula. How do you do that? So, just to reinforce that, does anybody know who this guy is here? This is Montejo Mitchell. Now, with a name like that, he's bound to be an athlete, isn't he? Hey, he's Montejo Mitchell. He is a USA runner. And then, does anybody know what happened to him in the London Olympics? This is him in the relay. He's got a baton there, you see. Did we know what happened in the relay with Montejo? No? He didn't drop the baton. What he did was, he broke his leg halfway round. He was halfway round and he broke his leg. And what did he do? He kept going. He kept running the 200 metres with a broken leg. And what do you think he said afterwards when they said, why did you do that? What do you think he said? Absolutely. I didn't want to let the other guys down. So I just ran on it. And for me, again, it's about the team stuff, about that feeling of letting people down. And I cannot overemphasise when I go into organisations. I can just walk into an organisation now and I know what the good and bad looks like, just from the vibe, from the culture. You know, I walked into one organisation in Bath very recently, and the 4 directors were all sitting in open plan around them. They had their backs to each other. They didn't speak to each other for an hour. Didn't even say good morning when they walked in. And it was like, oh, hang on, there's an issue here. And it's all about that team, that spirit, that feeling, that culture. So what is the magic formula, you're asking? Please tell us, Rich, and we can all go home.
For coming. Great to see you all this morning. Firstly, apologies for any issues around parking. We have spoken to the team and they got it slightly wrong, so apologies for that. I would make apologies for the traffic, but that's not my fault. Thank you, as I say. Richard, I'm not going to do a huge piece on ourselves. There's plenty of our staff here if you want to pick up with us afterwards. I think we're in for a really interesting half an hour from Richard. So with no further ado, and I've done it again, over to Richard.
Thank you very much. Morning all. Morning. You feeling engaged? Are you ready? Full steam ahead then. Let's see what I've done there. Hey? Morning, welcome to this session. They do say that people are your greatest asset. I know it's a bit of a cliche, but I'm a great believer that people are your greatest asset, but only if they are engaged, motivated, positive, but most of all, they are performing within your organisations. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is how do you look at this whole subject and create this culture where people can maximise and be performing and be positive and be motivated. Okay? Now before you think, this is the soft, fluffy, how many people from HR here? So I just know. Oh, you'll love this. Oh, you're not quite sure? Do I want to be? I'll declare my colours now. I've worked in HR for 25 years. And before you think, this is the soft and fluffy tree-hugging session, I have big news for you, because there is an incredible amount of evidence now that suggests that if you invest in this area, if you focus on it, it will have a... You basically stuff the place full of talent and allow that talent to bloom. So you have to have something that makes the great people want to come and work for you, and it's never money. You have to have something that makes the great people want to come and work for you. And if you think about your organisations, the cultures that you walk in, what have you got that makes the great people want to come to work for you? And that, in a nutshell, is really what it's all about. So, quick quiz. Who's this? Orange. Yeah? How do you know it's orange? It's just orange. It's just the brand. It's orange. It's the brand. This is a real job advert that went out about before EE, and stuff. This is an advert for Orange, and this is how it looked. This is exactly how it looked. There was no word orange on the whole of the job advert. And this is and I know the person who did this, this is the best advert they ever did for quality of applicants and getting the right people in place. It doesn't even say the word orange. Fascinating, really. Very clever. Look, www.blank. Not even orange in there. But you know it's orange. And why do you know it's orange? It's their brand, it's their culture, it's the values, it's the look and feel. Now I go into a lot of organisations and I do realise that with my Virgin backing that does help enormously. And everybody sits there and go, tell me what you did at Virgin, because we want to copy it. We want to do what you did at Virgin. And I go, whoa, hang on. There's a lot of stuff we did at Virgin, and I'll show you a few examples. But it ain't going to work for your organisation, because it's not right. So whatever you do in your organisations on this, my advice would be, do what's right for your culture and your values. You know, I've been doing some work with a major bank. The way they approach this and the way they look at it is very different from the little small software company that I'm doing some work for in Bristol, which has got about 60 people. They bring their dogs into work in the software company, and you have to be careful when you're stepping over the Labrador. So it's all about what you do. It's about your culture, your values. Don't necessarily do what is right, best practice-wise. Do what's right for your actual business. So that's a very, very important thing. It's doing what's right for your business. So, let's have a look at this area in a bit more depth. For me, it all starts with recruitment. That is the key thing. And you know, working with people like Outsource is absolutely vital when you come along. And for me, it's two parts to this. First of all, when you start with recruitment, it's making sure you're recruiting the right people to fit your organisation. The number of times I've been into organisations and they sit there and they go, oh, he started 3 months ago. He was perfect. He had all the skills and experiences that we needed, but he just hasn't fitted in. And he's resigned. It's only been 3 months. We spent all that money recruiting these people, and he's resigned. And it's because they haven't focused on people's attitude and their personality, as well as the skills and experience. And I cannot overemphasise the amount of time and effort you need to put into recruiting the right people for your culture and skills. Of course, the other aspect of recruitment is the engagement journey, if you like, starts at recruitment. The way you treat your candidates as they go through the recruitment experience sets them up really nicely to demonstrate what you're all about, gets them involved. That is absolutely fundamental. And it's really fundamental in telling your story. And let me just give you an example. So, at Virgin Mobile, every candidate that came in for an interview received one of these in the post 3 days before their interview. And what it was a little recruitment pack, got a little DVD there, and on the DVD we just filmed, it's about 5 minutes long, and we asked different members of staff, what does it mean to work at Virgin Mobile? And then, because when you watch a DVD, it's a bit old-fashioned now, isn't it, a DVD? Anybody got a DVD player at home still? Yeah? Anybody got a Betamax video thing? God, those were the days, weren't they? They were high-tech ones. So a DVD, of course, when you put a DVD on, what do? You probably have a cup of tea as well. So we gave them a tea bag. And what do you do when you have a cup of tea? You probably have a little snack. So we gave them a Kit Kat. Now, the reason for doing this was to not only because I thought that was a great idea. No, it wasn't my idea. I applied to Vodafone as well, across the road. We had Vodafone right across. I did a bit of mystery shopping to see what happened. So I applied to Vodafone, and I was lucky enough to get an interview. And instead of getting a recruitment pack at Vodafone, in my interview, please turn up such and such a date for interview, I got an annual report. You know, the corporate annual report that it goes to the city. And it's like, right, do I want to go and work for Vodafone or want to go and work for Virgin? And that's just an example of how you can tell the story. And of course, when you look at the whole employee life cycle, that's when it really comes to life. You know, through recruitment, induction, the way you manage people's performance, the way you develop them, all the way through the employee life cycle. You have opportunities all the way through that journey to engage and really bring your values alive. All the way through, even to the point of when people actually leave. Now, we used to have people leaving Virgin, and what happened then was 3 months later, you get a phone call saying, grass isn't quite as green as I thought it would be over at Vodafone across the road. Can I come back? Now, we thought, here's an opportunity to spread the love of Virgin. So what we used to do is, 3 months after somebody left, we used to send them a packet of seeds. Forget-me-not seeds, all branded like this, with a little letter that said, thank you very much, hope it's all worked out, but if it hasn't, you can come back. Now obviously you only send these to people that you want to come back. I see you HR people going, I see a flaw. That's not a good idea, Rich. And you know, depending upon the environment, certainly from a customer centre point of view, this worked really well because of course if you recruit people back into the organisation, they do your retention work for you because they come back in and they go, oh, you don't want to leave, you don't want to go over there, I've been there and I've come back. And again, it's spotting ways to tell your story, telling your stories in lots of different ways. And of course, in the era of social media, this has just gone poof into it in terms of telling your story. How many of you have LinkedIn company pages? Yeah, is it updated regularly? Yeah. How many of you have Facebook pages? How many of you have YouTube, stuff on YouTube? These are all places that your candidates and your employees are going to go. Have you heard of Glassdoor? You haven't heard of Glassdoor? Okay. HR people in the room, take note at this point. Glassdoor is the TripAdvisor for employees and ex-employees. So you can go on and write reviews about how great your company is or how great your company was if you've left. Okay? This is an American thing. It's only come in the last 2 years. Go on it, have a look at your organisation, see what people are saying about you, because this is where your candidates will go, and this is where your employees will go. And you have to really keep a handle on this. There's a company up in London, high-tech company I used to work for, and they were completely blissfully unaware, and there were some really derogatory things that people have written about. And this is where people are going to go. So beware. Of course, the other thing about employee engagement, I don't actually get, does anybody like the word employee engagement? I know it sounds a bit odd. Employee engagement specialist saying that. Does anybody like the word?
No.
No, I hate the word employee engagement. And the reason I hate the word employee engagement has several reasons really. First of all, it kind of implies that you have an employee here, you have an engagement thing here, and you come along and you engage them and you sprinkle the magic fairy dust over them, and suddenly, yay, we're engaged. Thank you very much, company, for engaging me. It's not like that, is it? We're people. It's a two-way process. And also, when you start talking about employee engagement, it kind of, people start thinking, it's an initiative. Yes, let's have this year we're going to have an employee engagement initiative. Who can we call? Call Rich. He's really cheap. But of course, you know, I always, alarm bells start ringing when senior managers say to me, oh, you need to do an employee engagement initiative. Because you know what initiatives are like? You know, big fanfare, we're going to do this year. Ta-da! Within 3 months, everybody's forgotten about it. There's no momentum. And of course, if you start saying to people, we're going to engage you this year, that's our initiative, what do you think employees are going to do? They're going to be cynical. Oh, here we go. I run workshops for a very well-known concrete brand. Rhymes with Branson. I won't give you any clues as to who it is. And I do workshops with their senior managers, and they're really macho quarry people, you know. And I was doing one in November, and we're doing the icebreaker. Any trainers in the room? You know, the typical icebreaker. Tell us about yourself, you know, your role, all that sort of stuff. And this guy stood up, and he went, and he was up north. He went, go on then, son. Engage me on your engagement course. And everybody like that. Everybody like tittered laughter. And it's exactly what it is. It's like it's cynical of come on then, I'm going to stand back and you come and engage me. But life is not like that. So my advice is stop calling it employee engagement. Don't call it initiative. It's just the way we do things around here. It's our DNA. It's our culture. We just do it instinctively. It's the right thing to do. So that again is a really important point. Of course, you know, there are some things which I see, which are the common themes which you need when you look at building this engagement. What is key, of course, is the leaders of the organisation. And the leaders of the organisation really believing in it and demonstrating that they fully support this whole initiative about investing in people. And I've been into organisations where this is where it all falls down, and of course I've seen organisations where it really does come alive. And this man here, for me, at Virgin, really demonstrated all this. And my famous story around that is that, so we launched Virgin Mobile back in '99, I think it was, down in Trowbridge. It was the first 3 months, it was chaos, everybody was working like 24 hours a day. Suddenly, this young man turns up, going, hello! I'm very oddly, when he goes and tours, he goes up to people and says, hi, I'm Richard Branson. As if like, oh, are you? So he came and did a tour, and he was down in Trowbridge, and it was in the morning, and he needed to get back to London in the afternoon. And he was going to get the train from Bath Spa to London. So he needed to get from Trowbridge to Bath Spa. So he called down to reception, said, can I order a taxi? Now, if you ever try to order a taxi in Trowbridge, you'll probably understand what happened next. It's going to be about an hour before the taxi's going to even get here. He said, oh, look, I need to get to the station. I've got a very important, I've got to get my flight back to Necker meeting. So an email went out to everybody in the organisation. Does anybody want to give Richard a lift to the station? As you can imagine, it was there was a bit of a stampede to reception. And one of the marketing guys actually happened to be the first one to get to reception. He said, Richard, it's all right, I'll give you a lift, I'll give you a lift. So off they went to Bath Spa Station. Now the first thing that Ashley needed to do that evening when he left work was fill up with petrol. And in all the excitement, He completely forgot. He was off, you know the A46 when you come off around the roundabout and you start going that way to Bath? He came off there and he broke down, ran out of petrol. Oh my God, Richard Branson's in the car, it's the end of my career, I need to get my CV up together, I need to call Outsource and see if they can get me another job, all that kind of stuff. And Richard Branson went, and, you know, and I still know Ashley, he still tells the story with a mixture of excitement and absolute horror. Richard Branson apparently jumped out of the car and said, look, Ashley, I really need to get to the stage. Started hitching. Didn't take him long to get a lift, bizarrely enough, leaving Ashley stranded. The reason for telling the story is the next day, Ashley got a phone call on his mobile. And it was Richard Branson calling him. And what do you think Richard Branson was saying on the phone call? Any ideas? You're fired?
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, Richard Branson was actually ringing to make sure that he was all right. And he got home okay and saying thank you, absolutely. And Richard Branson had gone to the bother of finding his mobile phone number, of taking time out of his day to make that call. Bear in mind there's about 90,000 people who work in the Virgin group. And actually take that time to say thank you. And again, that for me just demonstrates the qualities of leadership in terms of showing that you care. And what it does do, and this is the key thing for me, it builds trust. And trust is the one thing that you need in an organisation. Trusting each other, trusting the senior leadership team to take you where you want to take them. And again, so that Richard Branson, you know, he's very visible. He's quite shy in a way, but he uses that very well. And he takes the time out to really demonstrate that he cares. And of course, what also happens, so this is a quote, which is in his book. I hope every one of you read his book, obviously. His autobiography. So that's what it's all about. And of course, as well, what leaders need to do is set the purpose of the organisation, is set the direction, so everybody understands where the organisation is heading, and how you and your job, how that fits in and how that aligns. There's a great book by Simon Sinek, I don't know if you've read it, it's called Start With Why. There's also a YouTube clip, it's about 5 or 6 minutes long, and where he talks about why is Apple so successful versus all the other organisations. And it's about, they start with why, because a lot of companies can tell you what they do, a lot of companies can tell you why how they do it, but very few companies can tell you why. And that's the key, and how does that align? And this was Virgin's why. Very simple. And I didn't realise it at the time, but when you were outside of the organisation, this was just drummed into you. It was obsessive for recruitment, for induction, for the way you performance management. I mean, Richard Branson says it doesn't matter what your job title is in Virgin, you all work in customer services. Full stop. And it was obsessive the way they drummed that into you. So it's all about having a purpose. The other thing, there should be a question mark at the end of this, but unfortunately Vicky didn't have time to amend my slides. Where's Vicky? She's still there? Is she gone? She's having a bacon salmi next door. And again, of course, the next thing as well is having managers who are motivating, who are engaging. You know, the times, if I look back at my career, the times when I've been most disengaged, I can relate it right back to the way I was managed. Because I had a manager who micromanaged me, who checked up on me all the time, you know, he just told me what to do, he didn't ask, all that kind of stuff. And this for me, if you're going to invest any money whatsoever in this area, one thing is get your line managers being people managers, interpersonal skills, managing people in a human, you know, in a very human people kind of way. And this is the biggest failing I see in organisations where, you know, you've seen it, people are promoted to manage people because technically they're very good. They don't necessarily are good at managing people or actually want to manage people. So investing in people. And interestingly enough, I saw some research. So here's a quiz question for you. In a recent survey, what percentage of line managers said they're responsible for engaging and motivating their employees? Any ideas? 5? Mr. Optimistic in the audience? 40? I do my Bruce Forsyth here. Higher, lower. The answer was 13%, which I think is staggering. They didn't get that they were responsible for this. So again, it's all about investing in people management skills. I think is absolutely key. Okay, so here's another quiz question for you. Do we know the answer to this?
Another formula.
Five? You know the formula? 5? This is an actual question that was in the Maths GSCE, it was O-levels when I was a lad. It was an actual, 2 years ago, this was an actual question in the O-level GSCE paper. And I know this because actually I met the guy who marked this paper because I was doing some work for Bournemouth University, and bizarrely enough, he said, oh, yes. This is the one of the actual answers that they got. This is the actual answer. And I said to him, what mark did you give him? 10 out of 10. Because you cannot knock that answer, can you? That is the right answer. Okay. What I'd like you to do now is, can you also stand up? This is the tree hugging bit. We're now going to sing We Are the World. No. What I'd like you to do, I'm going to show you a sentence, and I'd like you to count the number of F's in this sentence. Okay, off you go. How many F's are here? If you see 3 F's, can you sit down? If you see 4 F's, can you sit down? If you see 5 F's, can you sit down? If you see 6 F's, can you sit down? Young man, can you see more than 6 F's? He's new, isn't he?
I counted T's as F's. I am dyslexic.
How many F's are there? 6. Those of you who didn't, who thought there were 3, 4, 5, can you see 6? There are 6 F's. Do you want me to point them out? Can you see 6? What people normally miss is the F's on the obs, for example. So there are 6 F's. So what was the point of doing that? Think about the exam question, the maths exam question, and this exercise. What's this got to do with what we're talking about? Any ideas? Absolutely. We all see different things, and we interpret different things differently. And again, this is the biggest lesson that I've learned in my career in this whole area, is about second guessing what people want, for example. How to come up with great ideas, great creative ideas at Virgin, not consulting with people who actually it affects. People are motivated by different things. People want different things. I read a lot about Generation X, Generation Y and all that stuff, and what the younger people want these days versus people like me who just want a job and be paid. And this is where it all gets really confusing and very complicated about. You really do need to think very hard about what people actually want in an organisation. There is some help though. Has anybody come across Dan Pink? Dan Pink is an American guy. He's written a book called Drive, What Really Motivates Us. If you like reading books, it's a great read. If you don't like reading books, on YouTube, again, there's a little 5-minute clip. It's all animated in cartoon fashion. And he talks about, these are the 3 key things that motivates people. It's about autonomy, so having, being self-directed, being in control of what you do, not being micromanaged, being able to do things the way you want to do it. It's about mastery, about being an expert, and developing your skills and developing your experience, and about purpose. It's all about why are you doing it. And these are the 3 key factors. He also argues very strongly that pay and bonuses do not motivate in the long term. In the short term they may do, but not in the long term. Do have a look at it because it is great. There's also some conference speaking he does, which is a bit longer on YouTube. So my point now is all about, understand what is really turning your people on, what is driving them crazy. Talk to them, but most importantly, listen to them. They're the ones who are going to come up with the greatest ideas, and they're the ones who know all about your culture and about the roles they do, because they're doing it. And as I said, the biggest mistakes, certainly at Virgin, I made was just assuming what I thought was a great idea, implementing something, and it completely backfiring because I haven't done any listening. So, a couple of other examples before we finish. I'm a great believer that you should do things differently. So let me just give you, I did some work for, did you come across OVO Energy? They're a gas and electric supplier, taking on the big boys, so I did some work for them. They have a recommend a friend scheme. Does everybody have a recommend a friend scheme thing? And it wasn't working, and they were struggling to recruit. They were originally based up in Cirencester, they're now down in Bristol. So we looked at their values and their culture, and they wanted to do something with their recommend a friend scheme. What we could have done, of course, is send out a really dull email saying, oh, by the way, we've got a recommend a friend scheme. But as you know, that's dull, and we wanted to do something that was in keeping with their values and their culture. So what we came up with was, so you came into work, and sitting on your desk was this. It's basically a wind-up toy. There was different versions. There was a pirate, there was a fireman, dentist and a doctor. And very, so this is about, that's really interesting. And of course, unpack it, and people started playing with their wind-up toys. Some had fights, some had races. I was like, oh, not sure what that was all about. The next day they came in, they had this on their thing. This is not a wind-up. You can earn yourself £500 by recommending something. And again, it just clearly demonstrates to me, very clearly, that you have opportunities to do things differently, which is in keeping with your culture and values. And surprise your people once in a while. Do things differently that really emphasises your values. This is a great example of an employee engagement programme that I've seen. This slide, I love this slide, this is great. I go into organisations and I see very sophisticated programmes. And my one key advice is, forget that, just keep it really simple. And do things, do small things. And of course, if you keep it simple and you do small things, you've got more chance of getting it all executed. And if it's very low cost, then again, it can be executed. So my final slide is the most important slide. And if there's one slide in the whole deck that people should really, I think, focus on, is this slide. Because this slide is actually my daughter's favourite slide. She's 4. I left fatherhood very late in my life. Thank you. This is my daughter's favourite slide. She loves this slide. And for me, that's what engagement is all about. You have to remember that actually people have lives. People have families. People have birthdays. People have events. Things happen to people. People, have sad things that go on in their life. And the number of organisations I go into and I talk to managers, and they don't even recognise people's birthdays. Yeah, my wife left. She was a teacher, and she left the school after maternity. She decided not to go back. They didn't even send her a card. They didn't even get her a present. She just got left. There was no recognition at all. And that was about 2 years ago. My wife still talks about how she feels about that. Like, they didn't even get me a card. And so that's why my last message as I finish is around, we are all people. And we all work in organisations, we all have lives. And you always have to remember that. So I'm just going to flip through. My last slide is, so why should the great people come and work for you? What is it in your organisation that means that great people come and work for you? And that is me, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.